Now, when I was younger, I often struggled with happiness. But now, being happy is my natural state. Now, that doesn't mean that I never get upset or sad. And it also doesn't mean that I skip around all day with a huge smile on my face wearing rose-colored glasses. But I'm pretty much always happy. And that's all because I redefined what happiness means to me. I figured out how to shift my beliefs about happiness from being an emotional state, which is by nature fleeting because of the nature of neurochemicals that produce our feelings, and change that into my default mindset by designing a life that supports my happiness. Welcome to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, where we explore the keys to unlocking your full potential and living your best life. I'm your host, Jose Johnson. Whether you're looking to make a breakthrough, overcome a challenge, or simply live with greater clarity, joy, and purpose, you'll find the tools and inspirations you need right here. So let's start your journey towards personal mastery and growth right now. Welcome back to the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast, your go-to resource for practical tips, insightful research, and inspiring stories to help you unlock your full potential. I'm your host, Jose Johnson, and I'm an expert in the fields of mindfulness, mindset, and peak performance, and I am so excited to have you here with me today. And today, we are embarking on a quest to uncover the essence of happiness, a voyage to transform fleeting moments of joy into a sustained state of bliss. Happiness, that elusive treasure that we all seek, only to find it only in spurts and just to watch it slip through our fingers like grains of sand. So, let me pose a question to you. Have you ever caught a glimpse of happiness, felt its warmth, only for it to fade away, leaving you yearning for more? Well, it's a sensation that we've all encountered. But here's the twist. Happiness doesn't need to be a transient guest in the narratives of our lives. Instead, it can become the very fabric of our being, woven into each thought, action, and moment. And that's precisely the transformation we're set to explore today, understanding how to elevate happiness from a mere emotion to a pervasive state of mind. Now, when I was younger, I often struggled with happiness. But now, being happy is my natural state. Now, that doesn't mean that I never get upset or sad. And it also doesn't mean that I skip around all day with a huge smile on my face wearing rose-colored glasses. But I'm pretty much always happy. And that's all because I redefined what happiness means to me. I figured out how to shift my beliefs about happiness from being an emotional state, which is by nature fleeting because of the nature of neurochemicals that produce our feelings, and change that into my default mindset by designing a life that supports my happiness. So, if you're seeking a more enduring sense of joy, or if you're curious about how to infuse more happiness into your daily life, well, you're in the right place. So settle in, maybe grab a soothing drink, and let's unravel the secrets to cultivating lasting happiness. But before we dive into our happy journey, let's take a moment to understand the science behind happiness. What really happens in our brains and bodies when we feel happy? And how can we influence this process to cultivate a more sustained sense of joy? The quest for happiness is as old as humanity itself. But what is it, scientifically speaking? Well, happiness is a complex state that's influenced by our actions, our thoughts, and our biology. So let's unpack the neuroscience and psychology behind happiness. Let's start with the neuroscience of happiness. Happiness activates several areas of the brain, including the prefrontal cortex, which is associated with decision-making and positive thinking, and the amygdala, which processes emotions. The hippocampus also plays a very crucial role, particularly in forming new memories and connecting them to our emotions. Now, one of the things that makes me happy, that's a good cocktail. And the cocktail of neurotransmitters and hormones involved in happiness, that's pretty delicious. We start with dopamine, often known as the feel-good neurotransmitter, which is central to our brain's reward system, motivating us to take actions that promise pleasure or reward. Next, we add a little serotonin, which regulates our mood appetite, and sleep, contributing to our sense of well-being. We mix in some endorphins, which are most often released during physical activity, and they help to alleviate pain and stress. And we finish with a healthy dose of oxytocin, the love hormone, which fosters bonding and increases our sense of connection with others. And voila, we have the chemical recipe for happiness. And finally, it's worth noting that the brain's plasticity allows us to foster happiness. We can literally rewire our brains so that happiness becomes our default mode. Now that we've addressed the neuroscience of happiness, let's look at the psychology of happiness. From a psychological perspective, happiness often involves a balance between seeking pleasurable experiences and engaging in meaningful activities. Positive psychology, which is a field dedicated to understanding what makes life worth living, emphasizes the PERMA model. Now, this model emphasizes the role of positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments in achieving lasting happiness. And when psychologists talk about happiness, they often break it down into two categories, hedonic and eudaimonic. Well, let's start with hedonic happiness. Many of us are most familiar with this form of happiness. It's about seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, characterized by moments that bring us joy, laughter, and contentment. Hedonic happiness is often associated with momentary pleasures such as eating a delicious meal, a fun outing with friends, or the satisfaction of a job well done. It's about the immediate gratification that comes from experiencing something pleasant. Now, on the other hand, eudaimonic happiness is deeper and much more fulfilling. It's derived from engaging in meaningful activities, personal growth, and the pursuit of one's potential. This form of happiness is not about the fleeting pleasures of the moment, but about achieving a sense of purpose, contributing to the well-being of others, and living in accordance with one's values. Eudaimonic happiness is about the journey towards self-realization and the fulfillment that comes from living a life aligned with your true self. Understanding these two types of happiness help us realize that while seeking pleasure and avoiding pain can contribute to our sense of well-being, true, lasting happiness comes from a deeper place. It's about the balance between enjoying life's pleasures, the hedonic, and finding deeper meaning and purpose, the eudaimonic. Now, interestingly enough, our pursuit of happiness can also be influenced by our mindset and our expectations. The hedonic treadmill theory suggests that people quickly return to a baseline level of happiness, regardless of positive or negative external changes. Now, this underscores the importance of cultivating happiness from within and focusing on intrinsic goals and values. Research shows that while our circumstances, things like income, social status, or our environment, can influence our happiness, much of it is determined by our actions and our thoughts. Now, this is good news because it means that we have much more control over our happiness than you might originally think. Deeper levels of happiness also involve a state known as flow, where we become so absorbed in an activity that time seems to stand still. Achieving flow requires challenges that are neither too hard nor too easy, providing a sense of accomplishment and deep enjoyment. Understanding the science behind happiness empowers us to take concrete steps towards cultivating it as a state of mind. So now that we've broken down the science, let's get to work building a happier you. And to do that, I'm going to share with you my 5-step framework, which uses the acronym H.A.P.P.Y as a science-backed way to enrich your life. So stick around. You'll be happy that you did. In today's world, happiness often seems like a puzzle, with each of us holding a few pieces, trying to figure out where they fit. But what if I told you that assembling the puzzle of happiness isn't as complex as it appears? So let's dive into my 5-step H.A.P.P.Y framework to decode the essence of lasting happiness. Let's start with H. H is for habits. Happiness, that's a lot like a garden because it thrives on nurturing and care. Our daily habits are the water and the sunlight that feed this garden. Now, there's an old saying about habits that goes, we first make our habits, then our habits make us. And this is why it is so critical that we consider whether or not our habits are creating fertile ground for happiness. As I previously mentioned, the hedonic treadmill theory shows us that we have a happiness thermostat, and that is our default setting. The only way to reset your thermostat is to take advantage of neuroplasticity to rewire your brain. And how do you rewire your brain? Through repetitive thoughts and actions, which are our habits. Now, this is how positive habits can transform happiness from a fleeting emotion into a stable state of mind. It's about cultivating practices that align with our joy and fulfillment. Next is A, which stands for acceptance. Life is kind of like a tapestry of contrasting threads, joy and sorrow, triumphs and trials. Acceptance is the art of embracing life's full spectrum, understanding that happiness isn't the absence of struggle, but the ability to find peace amid turbulence. It teaches us to welcome life's ebb and flow with grace. Moving on to P. P is for perspective. Our interpretation of the world shapes our experience of it. A shift in perspective can turn obstacles into opportunities and losses into lessons. By choosing to view life through a lens of growth and possibility, we unlock a deeper, more resilient form of happiness. Now, another aspect of the importance of managing our perspective is that we often fail to put our circumstances in the proper perspective. Sometimes we fail to see the big picture of events because we're so focused on the little details. And this also relates to how we too often think about things solely from our perspective and don't consider the views of others. Now let's talk about the other P, positivity. Positivity isn't about ignoring life's darker moments. It's about choosing to focus on the light, even in the darkness. It's the practice of seeking out the silver lining, fostering a mindset that leans toward hope and gratitude. And finally, why? Why represents you. At the heart of lasting happiness is you, your choices, your actions, your values, your beliefs. Happiness is an inside job, deeply personal and profoundly empowering. It's about discovering what brings you joy and making more space for it in your life. So as we journey through each element of happy, remember the path to enduring happiness is unique to each of us. Yet by embracing these principles, we can all navigate towards a more joyful, fulfilled existence. Well, now that we have the happy framework laid out, it's time to transition from understanding to action. So here are some practical strategies for each aspect of happy designed to foster a more profound, enduring sense of joy and fulfillment in your life. Let's start with how we can use habits to shape our path to happiness. To reset your happiness thermostat, consider integrating the following practices into your daily routine. Let's start with a morning routine. Start your day with a positive habit. Now, this could be meditation, journaling, a short walk, or even a few moments of silence with a cup of tea. The key is to create a sense of calm and positivity from the moment that you wake up. Another technique that we can use is gratitude journaling. Start or end each day by writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Now, this habit can shift your focus from what's lacking to what's abundant in your life. Next is to use mindful moments. Incorporate mindfulness practices such as deep breathing or meditation into your day to cultivate presence and contentment. And finally, think about using movement for mood. Regular physical activity, be it yoga, tai chi, walking, or dancing, can boost mood and mental health. thanks to the release of endorphins and the enhancement of neuroplasticity. Now, let's move on to acceptance and how we can use that to embrace the tapestry of life. Embracing life's up and downs with acceptance can be fostered through a few different techniques. First off, we can use mindfulness meditation. Practice accepting the present moment without judgment during meditation, and this helps you develop a more accepting outlook on life's challenges. Another technique is cognitive reframing. When faced with difficulties, try to reframe your thoughts. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Or how can this experience help me to grow? And finally, practice self-compassion. Be gentle with yourself. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. Practice speaking to yourself with kindness and understanding, especially during tough times. Moving on to perspective and viewing life through a lens of growth. To cultivate a growth-oriented perspective, we first start with a growth mindset. This helps us to embrace challenges as opportunities for development. Remind yourself that every setback is a chance to learn and improve. Make sure you employ big picture thinking. When overwhelmed by the details, take a step back and consider the larger context. How does this specific situation fit into the broader scope of your life? Now, one way to do this is to use the 5-year test. Ask yourself if the issue at hand will matter in 5 years. Now, this question can provide perspective, helping to accept and not sweat the small stuff. And utilize the empathy exercise. Actively consider perspectives other than your own. Now, this can deepen your understanding of others' experience and foster a more connected and compassionate worldview. This helps reduce personal bias and opens up new pathways to understanding and happiness. Next up is positivity, our ability to find light in the darkness. Let's start with finding the silver lining. Actively look for the positive in difficult situations. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring the negative, but balancing it with positive aspects. One way you can do this is to take a note from Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's 3-to-1 positivity ratio. When you find your thoughts spiraling downward, balance yourself by focusing on at least 3 positives. Another tool is to practice acts of kindness. Engaging in random acts of kindness gives you a boost in your mood and fosters a sense of connection and positivity. And a third tip is to limit your negative inputs. Be mindful of the media and the information that you consume. Instead of doom scrolling, surround yourself with uplifting content and positive people. And finally, prioritizing self-discovery and joy. Here are 4 tips to cultivating your personal happiness. First, start off with passion projects. Dedicate time to activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, whether it's a hobby, art, or volunteering. Find what makes your heart sing, and then just do more of that. Next, consider whether your personal values are in alignment. Reflect on your core values and evaluate if your life aligns with them. Make adjustments to ensure that your actions and your choices reflect what's truly important to you. Another tool is continual learning. Embrace the journey of learning and growth. Seek out new experiences, skills, and knowledge that expand your horizons and enrich your sense of self. And finally, don't forget to keep those boundaries intact. Learn to say no and set healthy boundaries to protect your time and energy. Prioritizing your well-being is crucial for lasting happiness. All right, as we wrap up today's episode, let's reflect on how we can integrate the H.A.P.P.Y framework into our everyday lives. Remember, happiness is a journey, not a destination. It's about the choices we make, the mindset we cultivate, and the love that we share. So start by choosing one aspect of the H.A.P.P.Y framework to focus on this week. Perhaps you can commit to a new positive habit or practicing accepting something that you've been resisting. Maybe you'll challenge yourself to shift your perspective on a difficult situation, or you'll make an effort to infuse more positivity into your days. Whatever it is, let it be a step towards a happier you. As you embark on this journey, know that you're not alone. We're all seekers on the path towards happiness, each with our own stories, challenges, and triumphs. Share your experiences, learn from others, and remember, the pursuit of happiness is one of the most beautiful and rewarding adventures of human life. And remember that happiness isn't just a fleeting emotion. It's a choice, a practice, and ultimately, it's a way of living. So thank you for joining me today on the Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast. If today's episode has inspired you, consider sharing it with someone who might also find value in this journey towards lasting happiness. And always remember, it is what it is, but it becomes what you make it. So make it great. Thanks for tuning in. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind you that the information shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional advice or treatment. While the content of this podcast is based on research and personal experience, everyone's situation is unique, and the advice given may not be applicable to all. Always consult a qualified professional before making significant changes in your life. The Personal Mastery and Growth Podcast is recorded at the So Good Media Studios, located in the Candy Factory, a co-working space in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.